Welcome back. Debate debacle. Democrat voters digesting President Biden's abysmal performance against former President Trump on Thursday night. A recent poll taken before the face-off shows Biden ahead with young voters by more than 20 points. But what do they think of him now? Joining me now is former Democrat staffer Jeremy Etelson. Jeremy, it's great to have you this weekend. You have been very involved in the Democrat Party at college and beyond, but you say you will not vote for Biden. Why is that, and what are other young Democrats telling you?
That's right, Maria. Thank you for having me. I campaigned for President Obama. I campaigned for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Joe Biden. And I, like many Democrats, was incredibly optimistic at the beginning of this term. And what we saw Thursday night with the debate was a disastrous performance that was emblematic of a disastrous term. And I think people are about to start talking about it even more than we've seen already. And I think an avalanche is coming from the Democratic Party looking for a different candidate.
So who do you want to see there? And how easy would it be to swap out Joe for someone else?
I think at this point it'd be very difficult for the Democrats to replace Joe Biden with somebody else. Kamala Harris is having the same struggles as Joe Biden is at this time. And I think the Democrats are really reaping what they've sowed with suppressing dissent within their party. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is polling much stronger against Donald Trump than Joe Biden is. And the Democrats missed their opportunity to have him as their candidate. And I think in the eyes of a lot of young voters and many voters more generally, this is now officially a race between Donald Trump and Robert Kennedy.
Well, how many people are you talking with who may have been against Donald Trump, but now say, I've got to vote Trump?
I think that a lot of the fear-mongering that's been going on in the Democratic Party about a possible Donald Trump presidency, a second term, just collapsed in front of a lot of people's eyes.
You mean because of Joe Biden's performance in the debate?
Because of Joe Biden's performance as well as Donald Trump's. I think, President Trump may have stepped into the bounds of hyperbole, as he may do sometimes. He may have been a bit discursive. But overall, Donald Trump was very measured compared to how the media tends to portray him. And he was surprisingly using a lot of unifying rhetoric. And I think that is what a lot of voters are looking for, especially young voters who really want the candidates to transcend partisanship and offer a message that will really usher in a century of positivity for Americans.
Well, I mean, look, Joe Biden lured in young people by promising them that he'll forgive their student loan debt, despite the fact that the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. Is that one of the encouragements for young people? Is that still there?
Intriguingly, if you look at the polling on the student loan forgiveness that President Biden has been pursuing, it has not resonated with voters in general or student debt holders. And I think the reason for that is that it doesn't address the systemic issues that have led to a generation being saddled in student debt. And at the same time, it's, I think a lot of people understand that it's not necessarily ethical to distribute student loan debt to a population in which many people have chosen to forego going to college to save money or could never afford college to begin with. And so I think a lot of young voters aren't happy with the student loan forgiveness that President Biden is pursuing, which is really seen as pandering.
Yep. All right. We will leave it there. Jeremy, it's great to get your take on all of this. Thanks so much.